Part 111. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1105. Since you're here, brother, why don't you give us an idea? Burin smiled in a flattering manner. She seemed to be much more cheerful and outgoing than the introverted Burin before. Yes, brother, no, there will definitely be a way. Klin quickly nodded in agreement. There is only Baidong. He has heard Burin talk about his brother, but no matter how he looks at it, he is just an ordinary genius in the Black Pan domain with limited qualifications. He has seen countless such people when the Ji-dong family was still there. There is nothing surprising, I just don't know why both Krillin and Burin respect him so much. If you really have no place to go, come with me. Garen had some concerns in his mind. At this time, Klin has Chiyu's mecha parts on his body, which are forbidden parts of the king level. If he can get close and study them carefully, he should gain good results. With Big Brother, Klin asked doubtfully. Yeah, I just happen to have to do something and participate in a competition. Garen smiled and said calmly. There has been a change here, and it must have become the focus of all forces. It will be very troublesome to stay here any longer. It is best to leave the home planet temporarily. This is quite right, and Klin and the other three nodded in agreement. We really want to leave our home planet, but we can't find any other way, Klin said helplessly. The only option is to buy a spaceship and fly out, but unfortunately there is no place to buy that kind of thing. Garen suddenly smiled. No, apart from the normal way, there is another way. Don't forget, I am still a magician. Huh? Ability mechanic. Klin and Burin's eyes widened immediately, and they immediately turned to look at Baidong. What are you looking at him doing? Garen was also a little confused. Baidong lowered his head in embarrassment. I am also an able mechanic. The same to you. Garen didn't notice it, but was mentioned at this time. Only then did he realize that Baidong was indeed an energy weapon master, but he was the weakest first-level energy weapon master whose consciousness was so weak that it was almost negligible. Garen ignored it. At the level of Galen, those below the inheritance level can almost be completely ignored, because that level does not even qualify them to look directly at them. Not to mention the threat. However, he knew the general trend, but he understood that Baidong was actually one of the future star generals. There were 4 star generals in the Red King, and there were 4 star generals in the White King. This was also the corresponding number during the final battle. The Red King's star generals changed several times midway, but Baidong never changed. He and Burin continued to grow until the final battle. The other 2, including the original Nono Siwa, have been replaced once or twice. After Nyanyo died in the battle, the new star general was changed twice before finally stabilizing. Okay, I admit that I have neglected you a little. Garen nodded to Baidong. Energy masters have a teleportation point in the radiation zone. They can directly reach one of the 3 major cities of energy mechanics, the capital of Nigadeko. Is there such a way? Clinton was overjoyed. The stronghold of the energy mechanic in the radiation zone. On the red-yellow desert, a giant floating city moved slowly, casting a huge black shadow on the ground. When Garen and his party arrived here, it was already 3 days later. Garen did not directly indicate his level at this time, so as not to make Klingburin feel dependent. They still need to grow, otherwise they will not be able to fight against the White King in the future. And now in the general trend, they will accidentally discover the stronghold of the Energy Master, get in touch with the people there, disguise themselves as Energy Masters, and teleport to the capital of Nigadeko. Galen just simplified this process. This is it. Garen looked up at the floating city in the sky with some emotion in his heart. I left the 6th Wind God General and Sinyo here, but I wonder how they are doing now. Let's go. He strode towards the stronghold. The 3 people behind them, Klingbolen, looked as weak as sun-dried eggplants. Without the mecha, they were just ordinary extraordinary people, unable to face the scorching heat of the sun. Garen would not shield them from the wind and rain, and would just move forward on his own. The only advantage is that if you get closer to him, the temperature will automatically drop a bit. This was their only comfort after 3 days of hiking. Tesna, on the other hand, followed without saying a word and gritting her teeth. She was in the worst physical condition. After all, she was an ordinary person, nothing extraordinary. If it weren't for Turing's help from time to time, she would have been completely out of luck at this moment and fell to the ground. To the point where I can never get up again. In front of a tall black stone pillar below the stronghold, it was still the same as before, with a group of people waiting in line to enter. The people in line took turns entering a small room, but could not get out. It was obvious that they had been teleported to the stronghold through some means. Garen and his party were outnumbered and conspicuous when they came over. However, when many people saw that Tesnaklin and others were just ordinary people, they immediately looked away one by one and were too lazy to pay attention to them. Garen led a group of people to the back of the line and lined up. This time I went to Nagateco capital not only to see some of my friends over the years, but also to participate in the genre competition, and, to meet Xylan. Xylan is also an able weapon master and has been living in the 3 major cities. He will definitely appear in this competition. Thinking of Xylan, Garen's heart suddenly felt ripples. She had lied to him for so many years. This was the first time that he felt so complicated. The team gradually moved to the front, and some skilled mechanics lined up behind them. Some people looked at the ordinary people around Garen and suddenly frowned. Don't you know that ordinary people can't enter the stronghold? Don't you know the rules? Someone whispered. Garen looked back, only to find that all the masters were pretending to be nonchalant, not showing that they were the ones who said the words. Ha ha ha. It's actually you, brother. Suddenly, a familiar fat face suddenly appeared in front of Garen. It turned out to be the little fat man who had helped Garen the last time he came here. He was still accompanied by the graceful girl with bright eyes and white teeth, wearing a white veil with a cold expression. The little fat man came closer, squeezing his body back and forth, and actually squeezed in from the end next to Garen. Friends, we're together, he said to the dissatisfied ninja master with a smile on his face while squeezing him. Is it you? Little fatty. Garen also recognized this person from before. The genius back then. Haha, the little fat man scratched his head and smiled. Garen also had a good impression of this guy. If it hadn't been for him, he and the 6th Wind God General might not have been able to deal with the 7th Wind God General who was chasing after him. Why are you still here? It's boring, the fat man curled his lips and said helplessly. He came over and said mysteriously. Seeing that you are destined, I will tell you a secret. Do you know about the Genius Alliance? Garen blinked. He signaled Turing, who was a little wary next to him, to stay calm. Genius League. Yes, they are all-powerful alliances formed by all kinds of geniuses. The little fat man raised his thumb and praised, for example, this beautiful girl next to me is extremely talented and unstoppable. She is the professional liaison in the Genius Alliance. Member. Then what? Garen really didn't know what kind of Genius Alliance this was. Seeing that you are also a genius and have the qualifications to join us, what do you think? Do you want to join our Genius Alliance? I can give you a preferential introduction fee. The little fat man rubbed his fingers with a smile. Garen laughed dumbly. The master of weapons was about to face a disaster. What use could this alliance of geniuses have? It depends on whether your alliance is qualified enough for me to join. Humph. Why are you so proud? I invite you to join because I think highly of you. These words immediately made the beautiful girl next to him dissatisfied and snorted coldly. Why are you humming? Do you know what politeness is? Buran suddenly lost his usual poise and said dissatisfiedly. Brother Ñaño has always been her idol, and she cannot tolerate others being disrespectful to him. Well, it's my own business, what does it have to do with you? The girl was not happy either. You are uneducated when you scold my elder brother. You look good at your age, but you don't know any manners. You are uneducated. Do you know who I am? I was, back then. The two of them actually started arguing next to each other as if no one was around. Clint smiled bitterly on the side and couldn't get a word in at all. Neither Garen nor Fatty paid attention to the two of them. Let's talk about this when we go in. We'll be here soon. Garen raised his hand to signal Xiaopang not to mention it again, while he asked the people behind him not to follow him for the time being, and he walked into the hut alone. It's still the original process, reaching out and holding down the huge metal ball. An energy mechanic can only carry 2 followers. Your ID card has already filled up the quota. The old energy mechanic responsible for managing entry and exit checked Garen's energy mechanic mark and said, "Full. Do you want to take a look again?" Garen took out a crimson badge again and threw it to the old man. As soon as he saw this mark, the atmosphere in the room suddenly changed, becoming a bit cold and biting. Is this the mark of a school? Or the mark of a high-level official? The old man stood up in shock and quickly bowed his head in salute. It turns out you are a master of the genre. No problem. There are 20 people at the inheritance level of the martial art master. You can do whatever you want. He added quickly. That's good. Garen nodded with satisfaction. A group of people entered the stronghold strangely, which made the other energy masters a little surprised. These low-level people did not know the details of Garen and the special regulations. The little fat man also followed Garen to the stronghold. Immediately, Garen began to search for Xingyo's whereabouts, but unfortunately, there was no one in the house in the stronghold. Xingyo and the 6th Wind God General went somewhere unknown. The house was empty and covered with a thick layer of dust. It was obvious that no one had used it for a long time. Unable to find Xingyo and the 6th Wind God General, Garen was slightly regretful. But the most critical thing at hand is still the difficulty of being an able mechanic. The competition has been restored. At this moment, there are more and more black hands in the competition. In the later stage of the competition, the hidden things are gradually exposed and turmoil occurs, until the entire competition completely collapses. Betrayal of betrayal, casualties of casualties, the Energy Master will usher in the darkest day in history. What Garen has to do is to protect himself and the Red Snow sect from this disaster. Before the chaos begins, he must not expose his true strength, otherwise he will attract stronger opponents. This is destined to be a catastrophe, and it will also be an opportunity for him to test Shinandi. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1106. Nagatako Capital. Naga Star. In the white light rising into the sky from the crater, Garen and his group slowly walked out, still recovering from the dizziness caused by the long-distance teleportation. I could vaguely hear the melodious sound of violins coming from the distance. The clear and pure sound of the piano, accompanied by the heavy and booming voices of countless people, floated from the distant sky and hovered over the entire city. Garen raised his eyes and looked towards the sky of the city. There was a huge blue disc stage hovering there. There were densely packed floating auditoriums floating around the stage. Thousands of spectators were watching, and the sound was still coming from the center of the stage. There were bursts of beautiful violin sounds. Passengers arriving via teleportation are requested to leave the teleportation point as soon as possible. An electronic voice sounded around. Garen and his party followed the people out of the crater. Like them, the sparse visitors around them mostly looked up at the disk in the sky. The blue disk stage with a halo attracted almost everyone for the first time. Guests arriving at Nagatako Capital. At the exit elevator, a display screen displayed the promotional content. MS and Victoria, the famous violin queen, performed on stage to celebrate the machinist ranking competition. It's so prosperous here. It was Tesna's first time out of the planet, and everything seemed new to her. She stared blankly at the teleportation point in the toilet. Even the toilet has to be teleported, what a luxury. In the black disk domain, only high-ranking figures are eligible to enjoy teleportation, but here they actually have to use it to go to the toilet. This is the first time for Clint and others to come here. They are like country bumpkins coming to the city. They don't understand anything, but they can't help but want to take a few more looks and study clearly what many things are for. There were people coming and going around, and it was a bit noisy. Suddenly, a group of people walked out of another teleportation elevator in the distance. They were all dressed in green uniforms. The men were strong and the women were coquettish. They all wore shield-shaped green badges. The two-headed snake. Someone nearby murmured. Garen heard this and ignored Klingberin and others. Turing would go and greet him. Instead, he looked at a group of green-clothed energy masters coming out from the opposite side. This group of people had special personnel to clear the way for them to avoid conflicts with the people around them. Just like celebrities, many young people soon ran out of nowhere and rushed to take photos, and autographs. Garen and others were pushed to the outside of the crowd by the security guards, leaving enough space for the group to leave first. Across the crowd and security guards, Garen quickly searched for the corresponding information in the mark. The two-headed snake is a medium-sized weapon type. There are definitely 8 level guardians, and there will be at least 5 elder level guardians. Among the group of people in front of them, there was a Bowie level who led the team to participate in the competition. All the contestants who came were inheritance level disciples, regardless of gender. As expected of a medium-sized section, Garen praised in his heart. Comparing this group of people, let's look at our own group. Not to mention Klingberin and others, without mechas, they are no different from ordinary people, while Baidong is just a baby, a first-level mechanical master. Can't do it. He and Turing hide their aura fluctuations and are just ordinary people. Suddenly, Garen's eyes narrowed, and he noticed a familiar aura among the two-headed snakes. Huh? This aura fluctuation, he frowned suddenly. What's wrong, brother? Burin was paying attention to Garen at all times, and when he saw him frowning, he immediately asked. Nothing, let's go. Do you want to go back to my place first and settle down before thinking about it? Garen asked, but when he arrived at this place, he knew that Klin and others had Chayu's arrangements and were likely to move freely. Although Chayu was severely injured at this time, it was still okay to occasionally wake up and send messages. After all, it had been supplemented by a component, and it was no longer the sole core. It was just as he expected. Klin scratched his head in embarrassment. I'm sorry, brother, we still have some personal matters to deal with, and we have to stay here for a while. Where's Xiaolun? Garen looked at Burin. I'm sorry, brother, I'll give this to you. Burin lowered his head in embarrassment. Suddenly a small thing was stuffed into Garen's hand. Okay then, Garen smiled, but his face was inherently more ferocious, and it looked more scary when he laughed than when he cried. He looked at a small black ring in his hand, which was obviously a space ring. I'll let Turing take you to stay here to do some business, how about that? Hee, thank you very much, brother, Klin quickly smiled in a flattering manner. Suddenly Chayu's voice sounded. Ask him to help, go to the Bronze Hall. As soon as the voice sounded, it deepened and disappeared. Obviously Chayu is not yet able to support long-term communication. Bronze Hall, Klin and Burin were stunned for a moment and looked at each other. This voice was not heard at all because Garen had put aside the training method given by Chayu and did not practice it. Only the three of them heard it. Tell this place quickly. Garen frowned a little after hearing this. The Bronze Hall, he knew this place, one of the lairs of the Holy Lord of Nagastar, was an important place for storing bronze crystals. In such a sensitive period, when he cannot reveal his strength, it is very difficult to do this. I can't help you go in directly, but I can help you apply for visitor qualifications. He knew that Klin and others would soon encounter their first and biggest opponent, the Demon King of Unrelegation, Shantae. In their attempt to recover a part of the Red Moon from the Bronze Hall, they may experience many dangers and hardships, but this is what they must. That's enough. Thank you, big brother, Burin said gratefully. It's okay. Garen called Turing and asked him to give instructions to Perry. It's still possible to use your connections to get a visitor's pass. As long as you have money, you can get this. After everything was done and contact information was arranged, Garen and Klin were separated. With Tesna, the only disciple beside him, Garen got into a taxi heading to another Chixu sect. Teacher, where are we going now? Tesna asked in a low voice. Going to meet two friends. Garen replied softly. Friends. Tesna felt that the whole journey was like a dream. She really didn't understand the world of mechanics and pilots, but as a relatively dull personality, her principle is that as long as she trusts a person, she will trust everything about him. Just like now, she absolutely believes in Garen and believes that he will not harm her. The taxi driver chatted with Garen along the way, and he seemed very talkative, but it was normal. With an innocent young girl like Tesna sitting there, most men would appear to be very talkative. I heard that this year's competition will be held in Nagastar. Garen suddenly changed the topic to this important event. Yes, competitions will be held every once in a while to allocate resources among schools. This is the most high-end event for ninjutsu masters. Now the number of people is many times more than usual. Our business is also much better. Tourists from all over the country, all the energy mechanics want to see the excitement. Almost most of the elite energy mechanics will come. After all, you can observe other people's styles and methods, which is good for broadening your horizons. Of course, it will have no impact on ordinary people like us, the driver said with a smile. Yeah. I heard that the old mayor will also appear at this year's event to speak, but I don't know if that's true. Garen nodded and said no more. He knew who the old mayor was talking about. In the eyes of ordinary people, the old mayor was just a leader, but as an energy master, he was the Naga planet to maintain all order. The Holy Lord, the Backlight Holy Lord. He is one of the three most powerful holy masters of mechanics. Not long after, the car stopped at the door of a bar. Two cold-looking people were waiting outside, nodding slightly to Garen. Rolling down the window, Galen motioned for Tesna to get out of the car. Follow them and they will send you to find a place to settle down first. I will arrive soon. Okay, Tesna nodded quickly. After getting out of the car, the two of them spoke a few words alone and then left. Garen watched Tesna being taken away by Chixu's people, and asked the driver to drive again, softly mentioning the location. Before the prologue begins, we have to deal with all the trivial matters. He recalled that it had been a long time since he had met the two friends he had been with before, and he felt a little better. In another beige cafe, Yagaduo leaned in front of the floor-to-ceiling window of the private room, looking at the crowd of people passing by outside, feeling a little lost. Everything in the private room is brown, including sofas, tables, and chairs, wall lamps, wall coverings, and a slowly rotating projection ball overhead. When the Accord is dressed up, it looks like an ordinary person with a little money, and it is unremarkable. For him, when meeting friends, it is best to put aside status and other things. If he still talks about these things when meeting real friends, what is the difference between meeting with ordinary friends? It is nothing more than comparison and social resources. With his current situation, status, how many of these are needed? There were too many such gatherings, and they were so annoying to him. Toot. The energy mark sounded again. Yeg took another look and saw that it was Perry's phone. It was probably asking him about trivial matters that bothered him, so he simply turned off the contact sound and let it keep flashing. Open the contact section of the friends section. He clicked on Garen's name. Hey, where are you? Outside the door. Click. The door opened. Garen walked in wearing a white robe. His clothes looked a bit unique and gave people the feeling of a religious official. The two people's eyes met, and they immediately saw obvious changes in each other. Galleon looked colder and stronger. Accordo is no longer as ordinary as before. Although he is not handsome, he exudes an inexplicable confident and sharp temperament. His originally messy hair and slightly dark skin have naturally become better and glossier. The glasses he wore were also replaced with more beautiful ones, giving him a gentle and elegant look. Still as thin as before, a smile appeared on Garen's face and he patted Yegduo's shoulder hard. You are stronger than before. Yeg was speechless. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1107. Where's Reese? Almost there. As soon as he finished speaking, there were thumping footsteps at the door. A pretty little face poked its way in through the crack of the door. She put on some light makeup and looked less pure and more charming than before. I'm not late, am I? She blinked and looked at Garen and Yegduo, focusing on Yegduo. Just right. Yegduo smiled and answered casually. The door was pushed open, and it was clear that Reese was not alone. There were 3 people following behind him, 2 men and 1 woman. They were all wearing the pale silver clothing of the Dragon Light sect, with the flying dragon logo tattooed on their cuffs. The men are handsome and the women are beautiful, but they all have some traces of reshaping their faces. It just so happened that several of my senior brothers and sisters came with me. They heard about our gathering and came to join in the fun. Do you have any objections? Ruzi said with a smile. A hint of discomfort suddenly flashed in Yegduo's eyes, but he still didn't say anything. It's okay, Garen said quickly. He knew that Yegduo had a bad temper and was extremely arrogant. He would dare to look down on you if he disagreed with you. However, it was originally agreed that it would only be a gathering of 3 people, but Reese actually brought other people in, which made people uncomfortable. Everyone knows each other. I am Dios, Reese's senior brother. Can I make a friend? The young man in the lead stretched out his hand and shook Garen's hand. Garen. Red Snow Section. Red Snow Sect. Dios didn't seem to be familiar with it, but he quickly found the information and knew it was a small sect, so he smiled politely. Looking at galleons, there seems to be nothing surprising, just an ordinary level 4 fluctuation. It was even worse than Reese, so he stopped paying more attention to it and instead focused on Accordo. How many accords does Xingyun have? He raised an eyebrow and reached out. My eldest brother is very familiar with senior brother Ike whom you sent. I heard that you have a very powerful master of Heiyao. You are not from Longguang? Dios, Longguang has never heard of you. Yegduo frowned and ignored his extended hand and inquiry. This obviously impolite behavior immediately made the other 2 people a little unhappy. I'm just staying in Longguang for the time being. I belong to Black Blade. The young man smiled slightly, with a gentle look down on him. Senior brother Dios is a master of 3 black swords, a girl couldn't help but introduced with a hint of pride. It's equivalent to the pinnacle of your inheritance level. Really? Yaji was speechless and didn't want to pay attention to these outsiders at all. However, the other party's etiquette was also in place, so there was no place to find fault. If he continued, he would only appear to be uneducated, so he didn't bother to pay attention to them. The other 2 were also Reese's Longguang sect brothers, but they all revolved around Dios of the Black Knife. Dios was obviously also a proud man. When he found out that Yegduo didn't express his goodwill, He stopped. Hotface leaned over. He originally came here just because he heard that Accord was mostly among Nebula's elites, so he took the initiative to come over and take a look. Anyway, it was fine. He was also very clear about Ruzi's thoughts. This junior sister, whom he liked very much, wanted to make more connections for his friend, but unfortunately, neither of them seemed to appreciate it. Even if there were too many Accords, even Garen from the Scarlet Snow sect didn't seem to like this move. Galen and Yeg got together, drinking quietly in the corner of the box. The remaining people were together, laughing and talking about something. Soon, it seemed that because of Dios's arrival, more disciples of Long Guanglu came over one after another, and several people from the medium-sized sect came over to get close. Even 2 masters of the magnetic field showed up. They seemed to be friends with Dios and were on the same level. The private room suddenly became more and more lively. Not long after, news came from outside that the entire cafe was booked. Fortunately, the private room reserved by Accord was large enough, otherwise it would have been really crowded. The whole box was bustling with excitement. Yaguo Duo and Galen were sitting in a corner, showing no intention of joining in the fun. Don't you want to get to know them? These are all masters of large and medium-sized schools, Yeg Duo said with a sarcastic voice. Garen raised his wine glass and took a sip. What about you? Why don't you go? There are experts on the same level as your senior brother here now. Forget it, I hate this kind of entertainment the most. There was a trace of impatience in Yeg Duo's eyes. Go for a walk. Okay. Garen nodded. The 2 of them looked inconspicuous in the bustling private room and left the private room quietly. Only Ruzi, who had been paying attention to the 2 of them, saw a faint hint of sadness in her heart when she saw them surrounded by the crowd. Somehow, she always felt like she was distanced from the 2 of them. But this thought was quickly diluted by the inquiries and conversations of more people around him. The experts around her were the key to what she had to deal with. Dios also exchanged training tips with one of the masters named King Yu, which also benefited her a lot. Maybe this is the price of becoming stronger. She thought so. She worked so hard to persuade Brother Dios to come over. If she could establish a relationship with Dios, it would be beneficial to both Agato and Garen, but she didn't expect that the 2 would not appreciate it at all. Recalling the appearance of Yegduo and Garen, compared with the gentle smile of Brother Dios, without any pretense, her impression of the 2 friends was slightly different. You don't strive to improve yourself. If you are weak and don't know how to improve your connections, then there's nothing I can do about it. Outside the cafe, rows of luxury cars were parked. The crowd was a little deserted. It was already afternoon. Galen and Yegduo stood at the side of the door, chatting quietly about some developments in recent years. What do you plan to do in the future? Just hang out in Chixu, Yagaduo asked. Maybe. Garen smiled. Something big may have happened recently. You should have noticed that many schools have been wiped out, right? In any case, Yegduo was indeed one of his few friends and had given him a lot of help. He had an obligation to remind. What? Do you have some inside information? Yagaduo seemed not to want to drink anymore. He poured the drink on the ground and threw the cup into the cleaning robot that was walking not far away. If you find something wrong, leave immediately. Remember, don't go to the teleportation point, Garen warned with a hint of meaning. Yegduo could see that Jia Long was serious, and his expression became more formal. Okay, I'll remember it. After changing the topic, the 2 of them talked about some things from that year, but neither of them understood how Reese became like this. Clinging to a powerful senior brother, this kind of clinging behavior is the most despised by the 2 of them. Everyone's choices are different. You choose your own path, Garen said lightly. We can't force many things to remain unchanged. You think so, right? Yeg took another breath. Indeed. I didn't expect that. I'm not as open-minded as you. Both of them hid their strength in order to prevent their friends from being distanced from themselves, but they didn't expect that they were a little unhappy when Reese regarded them as weak and not trying to make progress. At this moment, we chatted for a while under the fresh night air, which finally relieved us of our boredom. It's just that neither of them bothered to explain, so what if they did? This is the nature of some people. So although they knew that Reese had good intentions, both of them had a weak impression of her. I have prepared thoroughly for this competition and am planning to go further at any time. What are your plans? Yeg asked more about the genre competition. Me too, Garen smiled. The Red Snow sect is a small sect, so just perform well and try to break through the shackles. I think we should be able to achieve good results this time. Hey, you are so confident? Your task is difficult, so let's work hard together. Absolutely, Garen reached out and patted him. At the beginning of the competition, I will introduce you to a beautiful woman. Didn't I say what I said last time? Yeg smiled narrowly. You shouldn't be single at this age. Garen was helpless. You are progressing quickly, so let's talk about it later. Let's talk about it later. There are still 3 days. I have to go back first. He checked the time. Okay, it's time to go back. Just tell Reese and I won't go in. No, I don't want to go in either. Seeing those people looking down on others, they are in a bad mood. Yegduo waved his hands repeatedly. Just let us know with our stamp. Anyway, we are just 2 little people, we can't leave. It won't make any difference if I leave. He smiled to himself. Right. The two looked at each other, feeling a little funny. See you later. Well, see you later. There was no delay. Garen went to Tesna's rest hotel, picked up the people, and drove directly to Chixu's teleportation point. Not long after, a ray of white light rose into the sky and shot towards another planet very far away. Yegduo was walking on the road and happened to be standing in a shadow at this time, looking up at the white light of the crater in the direction of Chixu. Suddenly a black shadow emerged behind him. Hey, isn't this our senior brother Ike? Yegduo turned around in a sinister manner and looked at the black shadow. Do you have anything to do with me, junior brother? Hey Yao, the Red Skull is here too this time. So what? Yegduo smiled mockingly. You are the leader, I am just the vice captain. The elder wants you to eliminate the rest in advance. Focus on dealing with the Red Skull and 9 dragons. A secret move, Yagaduo frowned. It's up to you. But remember, your hands and feet must be clean, the black shadow said in a low voice. Are you ordering me? Yegduo became unhappy, exuding a trace of violence. Laugh. A black shadow shot out from under him, hitting the black shadow hard. Dang. The black shadow took 2 steps back, and his hand quickly reached out to grab a black venomous snake that appeared silently on his face. The scarlet core of the venomous snake almost touched his face. Hiss. The hand he held onto the poisonous snake began to rot. I'm warning you, if you dare to order me to kill you again, Yaji Duo sneered, turned and left. Also, tell the elders that my goal is the ranking of the headquarters, not this mere Naga Star 81 General Branch. The shadow trembled, and when he walked to the light, he saw a man with black skin, and his forehead was covered with sweat. He stared solemnly in the direction where Yagaduo left, not knowing what he was thinking. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1108. Chixuxing. Garen suddenly appeared in a boundless mountain forest with Tesna, with no one around. The slanted golden sunlight cast down from the forest, giving people a pure and clear feeling. Waves of horn sounds came from a distance, and the Fi'un Tower was clearly visible in the distance. Layers of cloud rings were rotating around the tower, which was quite spectacular. Teacher, where is this place? Tesna asked with a somewhat uncomfortable look on her face. Her physique was just that of an ordinary person. Even after being protected by Garen, she still felt uncomfortable all over after being transported over such a long distance. "This is my place," Garen replied calmly. After he left, the Red Snow sect had Asho Bingyang and the second elder there, as well as the newly appointed His Highness Sangzan and various groups of party masters. The entire sect had no problem sticking to it. The reserved resources are enough to be used for a long time, so there is no need to worry about insufficient consumption in this catastrophe. Just because you don't take the initiative doesn't mean others won't come and hit you. Let's go. Garen strolled towards Feiyun Tower, while Tesna was shocked to see this huge tower. The entire tower could be clearly seen from the gaps in the woods. She didn't react until Garen had walked out several steps and followed him. The two seemed to be walking aimlessly, but Garen knew that people from the Red Snow sect were approaching here quickly. The strongest one in the Scarlet Snow sect now is not the Three Hearts, but the 11 newly set Ice Demon Generals set by Garen, all of whom have been upgraded through the Seed of Distortion and will not fall down. Extremely powerful. Among them, Asho Bingyang was the acting leader after Garen left. Equivalent to the deputy faction leader, his strength is not to be degraded. After passing through the Distortion Seed, even Garen does not know what level he has been promoted to, but the only thing he knows is that he is definitely more than 7 levels. The current Scarlet Snow sect, even if Garen leaves temporarily, is still no worse than the average medium-sized sect. There are many talents and terrifying strength. The two walked a distance, and soon a figure appeared in front of them. Several disciples in red snow and white clothes arrived and bowed respectfully to Garen. "Take her to the junior disciple area and start learning from the most basic things." Garen motioned for the two of them to take Tesna away. "Okay." Teacher Tesna looked at Garen in astonishment, as if she didn't know what to do. "Go ahead and learn the basics of Dongzi first, and I will arrange it." Garen smiled gently at her. As the purpose of accepting Tesna, he also wanted to test how far he could modify the human body. He used the biochemical pool to modify the human body to form a high-strength biochemical army. This was also a development direction for the Energy Master. It belongs to the direction of Modulation Devil. Tesna saw the unquestionable look in Garen's eyes and knew that she could not avoid this problem, so she had no choice but to leave quickly with the two of them. Garen was left standing alone. Tisk tisk tisk. In an instant, several rays of white light fell around Garen, forming a circle. Divided into 4 persons. Leader of the faction, one of them was Asho Bingyang. This old gentleman with a cane looked respectful at this moment. The others were newly promoted Ice Demon Generals, and they all looked at Garen with extremely enthusiastic expressions. Because if it weren't for Garen, they probably would never have been able to break through and avoid being relegated. "Have all the preparations been done?" Garen asked in a low voice. "It's all done," Asho Bingyang responded with his head lowered. "Then let's get started." Garen looked at Feiyun Tower from a distance. "This will be the time when we can truly show our strength in front of the world." "Clear." 4 people answered at the same time, well trained. "The first target, the double key section." Garen's voice was low. When the competition began, it was the time for him to fully launch his plan to revitalize the entire Chixu sect. 2 keys. There is a medium-sized sect in the star field near Chixu star. Its main skill is wind, which is to control the airflow. From the highest to the lowest sect, there are a total of 130,000 people. The strongest one is the Guardian, a biochemical giant whose strength is unknown. It was said to be at level 8 thousands of years ago, but I don't know what it is now. The double key star is completely light yellow and looks similar to an ordinary uninhabited planet. However, the light yellow atmosphere on the surface is their protective camouflage color. In fact, the atmosphere inside is a different component. The double key star rules the solar system called the Double Key Galaxy. With it as the core, there are 2 surrounding planets that have been transformed into resource and tourism stars. In the dark space, at this moment, a group of densely packed white spaceships slowly flew out from nearby galaxies in the distance. Their whole bodies were shining with a silver film. They were those that had just returned from anti-space and could stay connected. Tens of thousands of white spaceships are all marked with one symbol, Chixu's twisted text logo. The spaceships were speeding toward the Double Key Galaxy without any disguise, and the dense blue flames ejected from the tail end were extremely magnificent, looking like blue fireworks that filled the sky. This is the Double Key Galaxy. This is the Double Key Galaxy. Friends of Chixu's star, please inform us of your purpose, otherwise it will be regarded as an intrusion and we will fight back. A clear female voice on the radio sounded loudly, directly ringing in all Chixuxing's battleships. Galen is in a war fortress at the core, looking at this beautiful yellow galaxy from a distance. The war fortress is surrounded by tens of thousands of cannon barrels like a hedgehog. This is a veritable war machine, a mass murderer created by a capable weapon master with terrifying financial resources that rivals the enemy's country. There were more than 20 people standing beside him, divided into two groups. One group was the Ice Demon General, and the other was the Emperor or Queen of the major empires and kingdoms under his command. During this war invasion, Garen gave a direct order to mobilize all the Imperial forces under his command with the ability to make expeditionary jumps, activate the warships, and form a legion. Except for leaving a few manpower in place, most of the rest were launched and went straight to the Double Key. Start a war. Because they were gathered in a hurry, the battleship jumped away before many other factions had time to deliver the message. Above the group of people is the dark space with twinkling stars, and below is a huge fortress of white metal alloy. There are no protective facilities around it, giving people the feeling that they can easily enter space with just one jump. The surroundings were densely packed, and all that caught the eye were all kinds of white warships. Some of them were not even white, but had been painted white in a hurry, and the paint in some places was not even dry. Garen was dressed in a white robe, and except for his head, the rest of his body was covered by a wide white robe. The Dual Key sect of the Dual Key Galaxy is the main exporter of large-scale Stargate technology. If we capture this place, our future operations will be much easier. It's up to you to decide whether to use some small fish or shrimps in this battle. Garen said in a low voice with a smile. Don't worry, leader of the faction, our ice demons will live up to their trust. Anyone who dares to resist us will be torn to pieces by our subordinates. A newly promoted Ice Demon General wears Ice Demon armor all over his body. This is a twist. Naturally, in order to break through the limits of human beings here, and the naturally formed amplification outer armor, they only rely on the Ice Demon armor to be promoted to the Ice Demon General without falling down. Some of the newly promoted Ice Demons will show their eagerness to try, and they obviously can't help but want to show off themselves. The older generation of Ice Demon Generals, such as the two brothers Asho Bingyang and Bingkai Binghao, are extremely calm. They know that what determines a war is not only command and strategy, but also the confrontation of high-end forces. We come with unified sincerity, not with destruction. Be careful not to affect too many innocent people. The people are the foundation of everything, Garen warned. I understand, a group of people responded one after another. The Emperor, Queen, and other national leaders on the other side looked a little uneasy. Faced with such an effort to launch a war, most of them disapproved of it. However, due to the intimidation of the Chixu faction, they did not dare to object and could only obey. Most of them have no strong consciousness at all, that is, the ordinary consciousness of practice, which is mainly used for refreshing and maintenance. But now they are concentrated here, more for the purpose of centralized control of the fleet. In their view, this kind of seemingly riot move, if unsuccessful, is equivalent to a desperate move, which will plunge the entire faction into defeat. After all, they are the active party, while the other party is the defensive party, and the headquarters is absolutely well run. It's like a barrel, so it's very difficult to completely defeat it. In their opinion, Garen's actions were more of a young and energetic person who did not understand war and just thought that he could suppress everything with his own force. "Don't worry, maybe this time we don't really have to take action." Xiao Yi behind Garen specially put on a ferocious gold helmet made of imitation of red snow ice armor. His entire face was covered at once, only his eyes were exposed, but it was still pitch black. Of course, he is not here to start a war. The Energy Master's original strength is insufficient, and the internal friction will be even worse. Galen's purpose is to integrate strength. After putting on the helmet, the sharp helmet extended forward from both sides of the neck like golden horns. It looked extremely majestic and mysterious. In addition, Garen's whole body was shrouded in white robes, which immediately gave people an even more mysterious feeling. Outside the war fortress, on a battleship, Alice and Aloran were marginalized at this moment. Although Alice was also one of the Ice Demon generals, she was still recruited into the fleet. Although there are only tens of thousands of warships in the war of aggression launched by the Chixyu faction, they are all very high-end fleets. They are several times more expensive than ordinary warships, and their natural combat effectiveness is much higher. Coupled with the hired pilots and various energy machines of the sect, the legion formed is much stronger than before. Sure enough, when Garen takes over, it will bring disaster and destruction. Alice frowned and looked at the beautiful double key star from a distance. Aloran also looked bad next to her. Garen's ambitions are too great. Destroying the ice hell is not enough. What does he want to do? Does he want to completely destroy the entire Red Snow sect? Why is it that no one unites to oppose such an obviously unreasonable plan? Coming, Alice looked far away in the direction of the Double Key Galaxy. A large group of light yellow battleships rose into the sky, jumped instantly, flashed this way several times, and gradually appeared directly in front of the Red Snow sect fleet. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1109. One last warning. Chixyu sect, are you planning to start a war? The female voice sounded again. There was a faint metallic luster on several surrounding planets. It was obvious that the planetary defense system above was fully deployed. It can be said that the entire Chixyu fleet was completely within the firepower network several times its own. The situation is extremely critical. This is the result of rashly invading the headquarters of other factions. Mechanics are not money-hungry masters. It is also very simple to completely transform the planet into a battle star. If necessary, they can even detonate the entire planet as a response. The enemy's methods. At this moment, all the civil warships in the Chixyu fleet became nervous. After all, most of the soldiers were unwilling to fight, and only the top officials were controlled by Garen. Although they had to obey the orders from the top, facing such a disparate battle, there was nothing wrong with quickly disbanding and retreating. It looks like a vertical water drop-shaped war fortress. Leader of the faction, let your subordinates wait to deal with the other party's high-level officials, an ice demon general named Besant shouted for a fight. Becoming a non-relegated person, the ice magic armor on his body gave him endless energy and confidence, which made him a little blind. The rest of the people are also waiting for Garen's decision. Once the war starts now, the Chixyu fleet will definitely withstand an unimaginable attack firepower network. It can last for 10 minutes at most before being severely damaged and disintegrated. Only two brothers, Asho and Binghao Bingliao, had absolute confidence in Garen. They did not make any move and remained calm and composed. I believe that the main plan of the faction leader should be given priority. We are not here for war. The fleet is only used as a deterrent, Asho Bingyang said calmly. Faction leader, if you don't give the harshest counterattack to those who dare to point their guns at us, it may affect the outside world's view of our Red Snow faction. Besant still advocated war. The leader of the faction has his own opinions, do you need to remind him? Bing Lai said angrily. As the strongest ice demon generals, he has a certain prestige. In private, These ice demon generals also compete with each other. Naturally, they are superior and inferior. Their brothers and Bingyang Asho are the three strongest. The rest of the people were naturally convinced by the number of 3 people. However, although Besant stopped his voice, he clearly showed impatience. Garen raised his hands, his face hidden in the golden metal helmet, and his expression could not be seen clearly. We are here to spread peace and sincerity. War is not about firing on our compatriots. They are also weapon masters, and one of us. After Garen's voice passed through the golden helmet, it became low, slow, and hollow. Sense of echo. Sect Master Sheng Ming, the kings and queens on one side immediately echoed, and their chaotic voices rose and fell one after another. They are the ones who least want to start a war. Once a war starts, no matter which side wins, it will cause the loss of their warships. This is not what they want to see. I'll go negotiate in person, and you guys just wait here. Garen's voice came from under his helmet. Regarding his decision, before everyone could react, Garen soared into the sky, flickered in space, and disappeared into the nearby air in an instant. The people below suddenly became frightened. Isn't this nonsense? A country leader finally couldn't help shouting loudly, how can you let the leader of the faction go into danger alone? You just need to obey the faction leader's decision unconditionally, an ice demon general said coldly. They had been changed by the distortion seed and believed in Garen deeply. Every word he said had absolute validity. Like him, all the ice demon generals were unmoved. Because of the distortion seed, they had already sensed the mystery and power of Garen. Moreover, not all of them had evil intentions. The distortion seed itself could only be used to guard against others. It is not good for Garen, but it does not mean that the parasite will definitely protect Garen and may not necessarily obey his orders. With various thoughts, everyone quietly waited for Garen's return. After several jumps in space, Garen quickly passed through a large fire protection net. No one intercepted him. Perhaps he thought that even if he came in alone, if he had any evil intentions, he would be in trouble, so he didn't need to care at all. Then he was allowed to come in. Garen jumped a few times, put away the jumping ball, and floated in front of the double key star, looking at the entire pale yellow planet. Guardian of the double key star, how about we come out and meet him? His voice was deep and distant, seeming to carry countless echoes. The voice fell, and after waiting for more than a minute, a huge black python slowly appeared not far in front of Garen. The python's body is thousands of meters long, coiling into a snake formation. The huge snake has 2 huge eyes like red lanterns on its head, which are staring at Garen in a scanning manner. The body shape of a man and a snake was extremely surprising. Garen floated quietly in front of the giant snake, like an adult or an ant. He could be crushed easily, but he showed no signs of panic at all. My name is Andes, the snake of black water. Guardian of the double key. Strong man of the red snow sect, tell me why you are here. The giant snake made a sharp female voice, and the sound wave itself was almost a sonic attack. If it were an ordinary inheritance level, the eardrum would probably be directly punctured and bleed. Garen looked at the giant snake carefully. He didn't answer right away, his helmet hiding his facial expression at the moment. After a few minutes, when his brother-in-law, the giant snake, showed some impatience, Garen spoke. I wonder if Andes has felt that something is wrong that has gradually happened recently. The giant snake was silent for a moment, and its huge eyes blinked. Wrong. Garen's deep laughter came from under his helmet. Do you know the Terror Knight sect? Minjai sect, Nanar sect, Golden Light. He kept saying the names of each section. These are all small and medium-sized sects that have been exterminated recently. The giant snake's expression gradually darkened. What do you mean by this? Garen stretched out his hand to grab it, and suddenly countless white cold air in the universe spread out from the surrounding dark space and quickly gathered into the palm of his right hand. This is the destruction of my mechanic, and it is also an opportunity for us to be reborn, nirvana. The endless cold air instantly condensed a terrifying power fluctuation reaching level 8. But the fluctuations were still rising, quickly reaching the peak of level 8, and actually rushed to level 9 in an instant. Aha! A circle of vine ice crystal screens appeared behind Garen. Countless huge white vines grew wildly like tree roots, spreading towards the surrounding space, as if they were constantly climbing on transparent glass. In the blink of an eye, it surpassed the size of the giant snake and reached a length of tens of thousands of meters. Call. The terrifying cold wind stirred up a huge amount of chill and spread it in all directions, blowing on the giant snake and covering its body with a light layer of white frost. Hiss. It quickly retreated several hundred meters before barely getting rid of the hoarfrost on its body. Looking at Garen from a distance, which looked like white ice crystal tree roots extending all over its body, its big lantern-like eyes clearly showed shock and disbelief. Come on, Garen stretched out his hand and reached towards the giant snake. Join me, together we will become stronger. Join you? Our dual key sect should be stronger than Uchixu, right? Why don't you join me? The giant snake suddenly became angry. He came with an army and asked me to join you. I don't think he is joining, but surrendering to you. If you want to understand it this way, that's fine, Garen said non-committally. Those who follow me will prosper and those who go against me will perish. Everything in the world follows this principle. Countless ice crystal vines swayed and flapped behind him, like countless tentacles of white light. Extremely dazzling and gorgeous. If you want me to surrender, even if you are at level 9, you still have to fight me. As soon as the voice fell, the giant snake took action. The endless wind gathered together, mixed with a huge amount of black sewage. It was summoned by the giant snake from nowhere, and bursts of human screams and shouts continued to loom in the wind. Ah! The giant snake opened its huge mouth and let out a hoarse cry like a man. Countless black water and air currents gathered at its mouth and quickly condensed into a badge. The extremely complex and exquisite small black badge seems to be of egg shield shape. Let me see what qualifications you have to make me surrender. The giant snake suddenly exhaled air. The violent airflow carried the black water and the badge towards Garen, and a feeling of being locked in time and space filled the hearts of everyone watching the battle. Starcore resonance. Explode, the giant snake roared violently. The badge flew to Garen in the blink of an eye and exploded with the roar of the giant snake. Countless light yellow transparent energy tentacles spread out from the light yellow planet behind the giant snake and poured into the giant snake's body. Boom! A huge black cloud ring exploded, quickly covering Galen's huge white ice crystal vines. Boom! Boom boom boom! More than once, the explosions happened one after another, 4 times in a row. Level 9, Garen's voice came out from the black clouds, still as calm as ever. The giant snake's pupils shrank. This time he used his strongest hidden power in an instant. Level 9 was so difficult. He was not at level 9 at all, but could only activate it temporarily. If the other party hadn't been too arrogant, he wouldn't have attacked with such intensity right from the start. Come again, its huge long tail fiercely pulled out with black light and an 8th level 1000-fold gravity, towards Garen's tiny body. The huge tail and the tiny human body looked like sticks and dust in comparison, but they were completely opposite. What came over was that the giant snake was the nervous one. Do it, at this moment, another female voice sounded. Boom! In an instant, the universe lit up. From all directions, countless huge high-energy particle beams streaked through space, focusing on Garen with a dazzling red light. The huge particle beam brought buzzing sounds and terrifying interference, coupled with the lashing and gravitational force of the giant snake, instantly concentrated and compressed most of the particle beam, converging into a small space where Garen's body was located. In an instant, the entire universe lit up. Several surrounding planets released terrifying red light beams, the most numerous being the double key star. Hundreds of terrifying particle beams flew out from the surface of the planet, straight and rapid, converging hard and hitting the space where Galleon was. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1110. The intertwined red light pillars are like a huge woven cage, completely filling the small space of less than tens of meters without any gaps. Roar. Suddenly, the painful cry of the giant snake came from within the beam. It's useless. The red light dissipated, but there were still large bright spots on everyone's retinas, and the black clouds had been completely dispersed by the particle beam. Garen was still suspended in place, unscathed, as if there was an invisible barrier around him, blocking all attacks, including the giant tail of the giant snake. My barrier of decline of all things can shield and devour any attacks that are harmful to me, Garen explained calmly. It's really boring to bully an 8th level snake with his 10th level. With your level, even if the attack is twice as strong, it's meaningless. Okay, the drama is over. For the future we are waiting for, obediently dedicate your strength. Garen stretched out his hand, and with a terrifying 10,000-fold gravity on his palm, he pressed hard against the giant snake that turned around and tried to flee in fear. Hiss. The giant snake looked up to the sky and screamed, being caught by the invisible gravitational field. Tisk tisk tisk. Red particle beams were shot out again, trying to stop Garen from capturing the giant snake. It was obvious that the people from the Double Key sect were in a hurry. Soon, there were some faint auras rising into the sky, and some flew out from the spaceship in the distance and shot towards the side. The red light fell on Garen and disappeared completely less than 1 meter in front of him. The masters who were not downgraded were intercepted by the Chixu sect's unstoppable ice demon generals who were not downgraded. The Chixu sect did not mobilize everyone, but only 7 ice demon generals, and intercepted all the masters of the Double Key section. The Chixu sect at this moment is far from the weak sect before. Be obedient and obey me, Chixu. Ha 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 ha, Vicent laughed wildly and got into a fight with a man in black armor. Huge amounts of energy escape like fireworks, exploding white and red in space from time to time. Response to Mr. Andes, some people rushed directly towards Garen, regardless of the pain and attacks, but they couldn't get close to him and were blocked by the huge force field. It's over. Garen stretched out his hand to hold the giant snake's neck and lifted it up. Laugh. Countless white vines spread crazily towards the giant snake, wrapping it inside. A twisted seed silently shot along the vine towards the giant snake. On the war fortress, the originally flustered king and others looked dull and didn't know how to react. Soon, their faces became more and more happy. No one could have imagined that Garen would be so strong. But those who rashly break the alliance's treaty will be punished. Soon the leader and others began to worry again. The biggest rule of the genre alliance is that they do not allow attacks on each other. Otherwise, if the big fish eats the small fish, wouldn't the entire faction alliance be left with only the Holy Lord level forces long ago? How could it be Qi Shui's turn to attack the Double Key sect? But at this moment, everyone was calmed down by Galleon's sudden outburst. Even Asho Bing Yang, Bing Crack Bing Hao and others were completely suppressed by the terrifying fluctuation just now. As expected of the enlightened master we follow. I'm old, and old Asho was also slightly excited. He was the one who issued the support order just now. In Garen's absence, he was the temporary leader. It seems that even without a guardian, I, Chixu, will surely usher in a new glorious era, Bing Hao said slowly. There was also a hint of excitement in his tone that was difficult to conceal. Power, along with it comes wealth, power, everything. No one will not be moved by these things. There may be such noble people, but they are definitely not the ones here. The masters of the Double Key sect were quickly subdued, but they were all unruly, and they obviously didn't think Chixu's people dared to kill them. The Alliance's contract is not vegetarian. Once it is broken, it will bring absolute destruction. There have never been such examples. A powerful sect ignored the agreement and attacked other small sections. They were razed to the ground by the masters of the Instant Alliance. The elite disciples were destroyed and the ordinary disciples were dismissed. The entire legacy of the genre was destroyed. The entire battlefield was illuminated by the huge light of stars, and the universe surrounded by stars was only wrapped in countless ice crystal vines, making it difficult to see what was going on inside. There are only Garleans and the guardian serpent in the inner white space. I've told you everything. You decide for yourself how to choose. Garen calmly looked at the giant snake in front of him. He directly told the other party about the catastrophe of the energy mechanic, and then placed the twisted seed in front of the other party. I believe that masters of this level definitely have their own methods to judge whether the seeds of distortion are useful to them. So all he had to do was calmly lay out the pros and cons. After all, if a strong person at this level is willing to be controlled by himself, even if he succeeds in parasitism, at most he will not be able to control himself, but he will not obey his orders. After all, the original body of the cold hell peacock mother does not have the ability to control pollutants. If it could be controlled, the twisted seeds would not have such a powerful amplification effect. There are pros and cons. Especially now, after Galleon has entered level 10. The peacock skill has also been promoted and improved, and has truly entered the pinnacle of Dachan. It has begun to evolve towards the cold hell peacock mother. The twisted seed seems to have also increased to a very short and terrifying level with the further peak of the cold prison peacock skill 12 times. The ability to enhance the terrifying quality of ordinary people by 12 times is the true power of the twisted seed. It can pull together all the chaotic emotions of oneself, turn it into substantial energy improvement and strengthen itself, and finally control everything with its cold heart. This is the power of controlling chaos with the heart of ice, and it is also the true meaning of the chaotic cold realm. Therefore, all the parasitized people can release the natural chaotic cold area, further expanding the scope of pollution of the cold area peacock. The eyes of the black water snake kept flickering and changing. At this point, he knew that even if he didn't eat, he had to eat. Moreover, the thing in front of me has been tested several times, and it is not harmful in any way. On the contrary, I feel that it is very good for me. This is the general trend. If we don't stick together, everyone will die, Garen finally added. Whether what you say is true or false, at this point, do I have a choice not to eat? The giant snake mocked. Although he could destroy the twisted seed in one go, at this point, as he said, he had no choice. The giant snake opened its mouth fiercely and swallowed the twisted seed suspended in mid-air. As soon as his huge body swallowed the seed, it immediately began to emit glistening white light. A light path like a white silk network emanated from his body and appeared on the entire skin scales. Hiss! The surrounding vines quickly retreated. Exposed to the outer space of the universe, the people of the Double Key sect have been suppressed. At this moment, seeing that the giant snake is safe and sound, both sides seem extremely peaceful, and they can't help but gradually slow down the pace of the battle. Everyone stop! Garen's deep voice came from the helmet. The Chixia faction quickly retreated and left the battle group. Without the entanglement and obstruction, the masters of the Double Key sect gradually stopped. Originally, they were similar to Qi Shui in terms of not falling in level. However, among Qi Shui's masters, there were several who were not falling in level. After eating the seed of distortion, they became more powerful. Increased, suppressed them until they completely lost their temper. If it hadn't been for Garen's advance arrangements, they would have been killed right now. You must know that there is still a gap between not being demoted. Garen looked at the giant snake. At this moment, the giant snake's body aura is becoming more and more powerful, and it seems that there are some signs of being uncontrollable. The 12 times physical enhancement is simply a killer weapon for such a terrifying existence that relies on its body for food. This kind of power, his disbelieving voice sounded dull. Laugh. A stream of black energy spurted out from the giant snake's mouth and spread all around. The black energy twisted into painful human shapes. They danced hand in hand, as if they were the most primitive dance sacrifice. Boom. Suddenly, the black air around the giant snake exploded and dissipated, revealing his current body. From the previous huge snake body, it suddenly expanded to twice its original size. Then it quickly shrank and turned into a snake-headed man similar to Garen, wearing white robes and a gold headdress on his head. In just a moment, his aura fluctuations had entered level 9, and stabilized only after reaching the middle level of level 9. Thank you for your help. The snake man opened his eyes, showing a hint of sincere gratitude and respect. Now that he has truly believed what Garen said, if it were not at stake, how could the other party generously hand over such a twisted seed treasure for outsiders to use? We are all able masters. If we don't unite in the face of such a disaster, we will not survive. Garen shook his head and sighed. So I didn't mean to do this, it was just the situation. If what you say is true, I am willing to form an alliance with you Chixu on behalf of the double key section. Even a strong man like you is so afraid, I can't imagine how terrifying the upcoming disaster is, the giant snake said in a message. And he did think so. Garen is not in a hurry. The effect of the seeds of distortion on the mind is not immediate, it takes a while, so there is no need to worry. Only when the parasite really wants to harm itself, it will naturally eliminate this idea. Only then will the influence of the seed of distortion become apparent. And once Garen is in danger and his life is in danger, all the twisted seeds will feel the same and come to actively protect him, because Garen, as the origin of the twisted seeds, is the source of power that strengthens all twisted seeds. Once he dies, all seeds of distortion will cease to function, thus instantly returning the enhanced parasite to its original shape and losing its amplified power. This is often the most intolerable thing for any strengthened parasite. Okay, Chixu's legion needs some maintenance, so it's all up to you, Garen said calmly. He brought the army here just to create a big battle, so that the people of the Double Key sect would not pay enough attention and only come out with small fish and shrimps. If you maintain it, there will be no problem. The giant snake had already believed in Garen at this moment, and he was overjoyed that his strength had truly entered the 9th level. He originally thought that he would encounter a disaster this time, but unexpectedly it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. After thinking about it, he finally decided. I, the Double Key sect, officially join the alliance of Your Excellency, the leader of the Red Snow sect, in order to advance and retreat together. His voice suddenly reached every master of the Double Key sect. As the guardian and the strongest person in the sect, he has full power to decide the affairs of the sect in the Dual Key sect. This order spread, and all the Dual Key sects were immediately confused. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1111. It's all a misunderstanding. Chixu's friends are not here for war, but for other purposes. No one believed what the giant snake said. Just now, some people who wanted to keep Chixu from being demoted even shouted the words to surrender to them. But now that his guardian's aura has greatly increased in strength, it doesn't look like it's fake. Have you really surrendered to the other party? Go back and hold an internal meeting of the faction, the giant snake directly issued the notice. Then he looked at Garen. I need to explain to the senior management first and take my leave first. Well, go ahead, Garen nodded. The snake man turned around and hissed, as if he had said something. Suddenly, the people from the Double Key sect gathered together and flew towards the Double Key star with him, leaving only a small group of people to monitor Chi Shue's army. Garen glanced at Asho. Deputy leader, please stay and coordinate things here. If Andes has any doubts, you can come to me at the Naga Star competition arena. Okay, leader. Asho immediately nodded respectfully. Don't worry, the guardian of the double key sect has been solved, so there will be no problems for others. The key to this sect is the giant snake. It is different from other sections. Of course, then the rest of you will follow me, Garen ordered loudly. Get ready to jump to the next destination. There is not much movement visible from the outside of the Legion battleship, but inside it has already turned into a sea of celebration and excitement. It was uneasy and threatening at the beginning, but now it has suddenly turned sharply, and the opponent has suddenly become one of our own. This strange change made every fleet guard feel surprised and happy, and at the same time, they also had a vague dependence and trust on Garen. The previous apocalyptic and horrific war was visible to everyone. At this moment, all the king's fleets have a clear sense of belonging to the new faction leader Garen, and everyone is vaguely twisted and condensed into a whole. With an order from Garen, all the main battleships immediately opened their jumping energy furnaces without the need for an order from the Legion commander, blasting a dark temporary jumping wormhole in the universe. Only some of the planned auxiliary battleships were left behind for maintenance and transformation by the people of the Double Key Star. The fleet of 10,000 ships was reduced to less than half, with only more than 6,000 ships. Garen flew back to the war fortress and was greeted by the reverence of all the kings and ice demon generals. Medium-sized genre Jinling Ryu. Jinling Ryu is quite special. They do not recruit disciples on a large scale and do not have high requirements for resources, so their territory is not large. The key is to cultivate the mind. However, in recent decades, the new faction leaders of Jinling Ryu have become extremely ambitious and have begun to gradually and covertly devour and control the surrounding small factions. Silver Bell Galaxy. There was a sudden distortion in the dark cosmic space, and a huge black round hole emerged from the darkness. A group of densely packed white warships shot out from the inside. These fleets were all long and fusiform, and each one was the most expensive warship. The center of which also surrounds a more powerful war fortress. Garen stood on the fortress and looked at the second target from a distance. This is the second more difficult target. Eat the two strongest factions nearby first, and the rest will be easily solved, he said slowly. The leader of the faction is wise, but this time the leader of the Silver Bell faction is a character who does not easily succumb to others. I'm afraid we are going to have a tough battle, right? Besant still wants a real battle to prove himself. Please fight quickly. Why don't you let me, Besant, be the vanguard to test it out? Garen glanced at him, and he was very clear about these new promotions. No, I've heard of Silver Bell Light. He entered resonance at the age of 22, entered inheritance at the age of 50, and never failed to break through at the age of 160. He can be called a genius among geniuses. Try not to do anything if you can't avoid conflicts. It's a pity that if we don't take action, they are going to take action. Bing Hao on the side sneered. Sure enough, in the distant space, a black cloud rose into the sky from the Silver Bell star and turned into a huge blurred human face. He opened his mouth and fiercely sprayed out a large invisible stream of air towards the Chixia fleet. The airflow fiercely rushed towards the Chixia fleet, and its concentrated target was the war fortress where Garen was located. Don't panic, this is not an attack. Garen raised his hand to signal everyone to stay quiet. The fleet quickly calmed down, and the muzzles of the slowly lit offensive cannon also dimmed and went out. The Ice Demon General and others also relaxed and were no longer as nervous as before. At this moment, an inexplicable voice carried in the invisible airflow reached Garen's mind. Geliasi, why are you here? Why don't you stay in Lord Carthage's territory? Don't think that your sister can always protect you. The old woman's voice was clear and stern. Garen felt a shiver in his heart. He knew the inside story. He didn't know whether the Silver Bell's light was being controlled or he was originally a spy. Who are you? How do you know I am Geliasi? He transmitted the message in turn. No. There's no way Geliasi doesn't know my identity. The voice suddenly changed slightly. His heart screamed, and a sharp look flashed in Garen's eyes. "Do it," he growled. The whole person rose into the sky and shot several flashes towards the Silver Bell star. "Stupid," the light of the Silver Bell sneered, his black face opened his mouth fiercely, and he ate towards Garen. The terrifying and huge breathing sound of the human face spread out in all directions, pulling in a large amount of cosmic rays and particle dust to form a huge vortex. Tear. There was a loud noise, and huge white ice crystal vines suddenly opened behind Garen. Countless ice crystals stacked on top of each other, forming pairs of white wings that flapped slowly, all piled up behind him. From a distance, Garen looked like an angel descending on the earth in mythology. Behind him, countless white lighting ice crystal vines grew rapidly like silk nets and tentacles. Countless ice crystal white wings flapped back fiercely. It brought out a terrifying and huge impact and shot towards the black face on the surface of the Silver Bell star. Boom! Galleons and human faces collided hard, and a clear wave of light exploded, turning into a disc-like halo that spread across the surface of the planet, and a large hole was opened in the light blue atmosphere. Ouch! The Black Chi man's face howled miserably, and most of his face was torn apart. Only at this moment did everyone see clearly. A tall figure covered in black robes stood suspended in the middle of the face. A large amount of root-like black gas naturally emitted from the back of the figure, providing the maintenance of a huge human face. Garen's impact hit the figure right upright. It was obvious that this man was no match for Garen head-on. "Who are you?" the figure roared. "Submit to me, or you will die." Garen said nothing, he flapped his countless wings and rushed down. There is no need for any moves at all. In his current state, he naturally emits a 9-level 10,000-fold gravity. A direct collision can cause huge damage to this body whose Silver Bell light is not yet at its 9th level peak. "Who do you think you are?" The light of the Silver Bell roared crazily. Roar! His whole body exploded instantly and turned into countless black energy. The black energy condensed to form a terrifying beast like a giant dragon, which was as big as half a planet. Roar! The black dragon raised its head and roared. The weird thing is that this dragon is different from the traditional mythical dragon. He has only one white eye on his face. "Dragon gene," Garen snorted coldly. The thing he was least afraid of was the dragon gene. The 9-headed dragon's soul will suddenly glowed with a faint blood-colored fluorescence from the soul seed ring. At the same time, the black one-eyed dragon silently shot out a thick black light from its single eye, hitting Garen hard. The black light was mixed with a feeling of absolute destruction, and I didn't know what energy attribute it had. The black light shot in front of Garen, but suddenly split into two halves and shot out at high speed on both sides. Garen put away the raised hand knife. He just raised his palm straight and cut the black light of destruction into two pieces without any injuries. "No, it's impossible," the black one-eyed dragon couldn't believe that his own light of destruction was actually hit by the opponent without any damage, without having to dodge. You must know that his light of destruction is a terrifying weapon that can pose a huge threat to even the 9th level peak. An ordinary 10th level Holy Master would not dare to resist easily. This is his biggest reliance as a Dark Dragon gene user. The Dark Dragon's genes and its own mecha were fused into the body, forming a convergence of terrifying power that once even destroyed an entire planet. Although he has been reincarnated now, his power has dropped a lot, and he is not able to explode at full strength, but it is not something that ordinary 9th level people can handle. "Don't tell me, you're not level 9. The Dark Dragon said in confusion. "Submit to me, and I will give you more powerful power." Garen was high up, overlooking the black dragon below, a black dragon as big as half a planet. This giant creature is already an extremely terrifying type among the dragon species, but it is a pity that his will of the ancient 9-headed dragon has been refined and sublimated after the battle with the ancient 9-headed dragon king. Even with pure dragon genes, the ancient 9-headed dragon seems to be stronger than the opponent. This dark dragon does not seem to be really so powerful just by genes, but its internal body also contains a large amount of metal and other components. Apparently absorbed and fused the mecha into the body. Use the superposition of mecha and dragon genes to increase your strength. So the result was natural, the dark dragon was suppressed. He was easily suppressed by the will of the ancient nine-headed dragon. Garen didn't even need to use the cold peacock. The cold peacock was a cosmic beast that ranked higher than the nine-headed dragon, and was also famous in the ancient Yinduo civilization. A ranking of 32 has long since become extinct. Submit to you. Who do you think you are? Not even the King of White can expect me to surrender. The light of Silver Bell became crazy. A deep darkness filled the one eye, instantly polluting the white one eye into a pitch-black depth. Dark Age. He obviously tried his best. The dark air flow as violent as ink exploded, spanning the distance of light years in an instant, polluting a large area of the surrounding universe into pitch black. A small half of Chixu's fleet was also affected, and was quickly swallowed up by the darkness without any sound being completely submerged. The entire fleet was unable to react in time and retreated in confusion. All places covered by darkness turned into deep darkness, and that darkness seemed to be another space. Countless darkness surrounded Garen, covering his entire body and wings in several layers, inside and out. This is. Garen reached out to touch the darkness, only to find that it was just black nothingness without any substance. In the darkness, invisible and inexplicable dangerous auras slowly emerged. It's actually here. When Garen felt the dangerous aura, his expression suddenly froze. I never expected that something like this was hidden in this darkness. Things that can cause shock to his cold hell peacock skill. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1112. Void Creature. The things approaching in the darkness are all void creatures. Of all Garen's senses, only touch can be felt, and the other sensory organs are directly covered by darkness. The auras of the void creatures fluctuated like ripples on the water's surface, spreading from a distance in circles and touching Garen's skin. Void creatures. I didn't expect that. Garen's expression was a little strange. Others didn't know, but the thing he was not afraid of the most was void creatures. Because Maiwa was originally created to fight against void creatures. In the darkness in the distance, a creature whose upper body was a human and whose lower body was black mist was approaching. But as soon as he got closer, he felt an extremely strong terrifying pressure emanating from Garen. Hiss. It let out a cry of terror and quickly retreated. Facing Garen, who is the most powerful apex void creature. Naturally, these low-level void creatures felt oppressive and uncomfortable even approaching them, let alone being surrounded. The void creatures that were supposed to come in endlessly suddenly disappeared without even a shadow. Interesting. Garen tried to use his sense of touch to look around, only to find that this darkness had completely cut off the rest of his senses, leaving only his sense of touch. No matter how hard he tried, no amount of strength could lift him out of this state. Bang! A large violent air current suddenly spread out from Garen's body, and the wave that barely reached level 10 instantly shattered all the void creatures that had not had time to run away in the darkness and turned them into debris. But the entire dark space seemed to remain motionless, completely unaffected by this 10th level fluctuation. It should be dimensional technology that temporarily transferred me to another space, and this space is beyond his control. Garen vaguely guessed the truth. In that case, he stretched out his right palm and pointed it flatly in front of him. Twice the punch pressure. Buzz. The surrounding space of hundreds of meters suddenly turned into a terrifying liquid state like glue. Twice the punch. An even more violent force field erupted from Garen's body, and the fist pressure twice that of the 10th level wave directly shook the surrounding space faintly. This has reached the full explosive power of a normal person who has just entered the 10th level. But it was still not enough. The space just shook, but there were no cracks. 3 times. Galleons increased again. 88 times the destructive impact punch, he has now been able to reach 15 times. After completely entering the 10th level threshold, he himself seems to have made a huge leap in all aspects. It seems that this is the rule of this universe, entering the 10th level. You will naturally receive a lot of gifts. This is used to draw a boundary and a qualitative difference from the lower levels. The space began to trembled violently, and a strange roar could be heard vaguely in the distant space, as if a void creature was screaming in fear. I want to see how big my force field can be supported here. 4 times, Garen's right palm has condensed a group of transparent light. Originally, the light should not be visible in the dark space, but at this moment, his right palm has condensed a group of transparent light. On the palm of my hand, a transparent thing naturally emitted an astonishing light. It was not white light, but it looked like white light. The light seemed to be able to penetrate all objects including Garen's body, turning everything into translucent the same existence. 5 times, Garen spat out the syllable again, activating the 5th enhancement of the destructive impact fist. Puff! The dark dragon in the outside world spat out a mouthful of black blood, and the black blood instantly evaporated and turned into black energy that blended into the mist around him. There was a hint of fear in his eyes. How much stronger can this guy be? From the normal strength at the beginning, now the force field can actually affect him through space. This kind of power. This kind of pure power is so powerful that it makes people tremble. You actually want to imprison the leader of the faction. On the war fortress, Bing Crack and Bing Hao had seen how powerful Garen was, and they had no worries at all. He clasped his fists on his chest and sneered. But this level has already surpassed the 8th level, right? You are worthy of being the leader of our faction. I am the strongest person in Chixu for thousands of years, Vicent whispered with a hint of fanaticism. The faction leader will definitely win. The Lord is invincible. The two-headed werewolf under Garen's command has been strengthened again. After the Cold Hell Peacock skill reached the peak of Dachan, the distortion seed increased by 12 times, and at the same time, all the parasitized people began to a new round of improvement. This improvement is synchronous. All people who have been parasitized before will simultaneously increase the amplification intensity of the twisted seed, regardless of distance or distance. The two-headed werewolves also felt the terrifying power of improvement. Each one of them has been promoted from the ordinary level to the peak level. However, Ice-Cracking Bing Hao and others were already at this level, and now they silently entered the 8th level. This almost cheating improvement was all due to Garen's increase in power level. This is the horror of the cold territory Peacock Mother. One person can cause huge chaos, and can continue to spread the seeds of distortion like a plague, which is enough to pollute a large area of the world into a chaotic cold territory. This is how many historical species in Gaian can be a dangerous existence that ranks 32nd in the world. These 32 are not ordinary powerful. Just like all kinds of creatures on the earth, from ancient times to the present, from the age of dinosaurs to the present, all the creatures put together, what is the concept of 32 of them? The worst is the extremely powerful dinosaur level, not to mention the many ancient sounds. Civilization is a great civilization that spans time and space, and there are countless terrifying monsters in it. The most powerful creatures in the void, such as the ancient 9-headed dragon, cannot be compared to the cold Peacock Mother. At this moment, in the entire Silver Bell galaxy, with the Silver Bell star as the core, countless black cracks gradually appeared in the surrounding space, like large tracts of spider webs, and children spread in all directions. 6 times, a loud voice suddenly came from the void. Countless cracks shattered, the dark dragon howled miserably, and bursts of explosions of different sizes suddenly appeared all over its body. Each explosion caused blood holes of different sizes to appear in its entire body. Garen's huge white ice crystal wings appeared before everyone's eyes again. He stepped directly out of the crack, and the dark space behind him shattered, and everything returned to the previous state of the universe without black fog. As the dark space was torn apart, strands of various rainbow-like substances automatically emerged in the space. This is it, Garen reached out to grab a strand, trying to analyze its ingredients. But I didn't expect that these strands of things suddenly collapsed and turned into countless rainbow light spots. It seems impossible to capture. He then turned his attention to the dark dragon that was still screaming and struggling. The masters of the Silver Bell style had already rushed out of the planet's atmosphere and rushed towards Garen, but again, he was immediately stopped by Chixu's masters. At this moment, Chixu was already stronger than the average medium-sized section. More than a dozen ice demon generals who were not downgraded masters were dispatched one after another to completely suppress the entire Silver Bell style. With Garen and the Dark Dragon at the center, rainbow-like ripples of battle fluctuations bloomed and burst around them. Garen finally stretched out his hand and faced the Dark Dragon, who was already dying from the backlash just now. Swallow. He activated the long-lost devouring ability of the Cold Region Peacock skill. Countless blue threads spurted out from his hand, quickly wrapping the Dark Dragon in it. No, the Dark Dragon was so weak that he was unable to resist. In any case, his Dark Era move was extremely powerful. It could trap ordinary 10th level Eternal Movers at the 9th level. There was no way to escape from it. If Garen hadn't exploded with 6 times the destructive impact punch in the end, exceeding the power of the normal 10th level, he would probably have been able to just wait quietly inside for the follow-up changes of this move. Countless blue threads spurted out from the big mouth of Garen's palm, covering most of the planet in an instant, including the Dark Dragon lying on it. Countless blue silk threads soon formed a huge white cocoon, inside which the Dark Dragon struggled slowly and painfully, but its movements became slower and slower. Accidents will happen after all. Garen's expression was calm. He had expected this situation for a long time. There are countless undercover spies lurking among the pilots. It is normal to encounter this kind of situation, so he had decided from the beginning that if he encountered such an undercover agent together, he would quickly suppress and kill him with the fastest speed and maximum strength. No hesitation at all. Kill them. Glancing at the rest of the silver bells, Garen said calmly. The sound from the golden helmet was instantly transmitted to the ears of all the Red Snow Masters. It did not require sound transmission, but directly resonated with the vibration of the twisted seed. Information can be easily transmitted across space. After giving the order, auras suddenly rose again from the war fortress not far away, all of which were non-falling. Previously, Chixu's people were just playing tricks on Yin Lingliu's non-relegation with 1 against 2, but now they are really getting serious. After a while, silvery white fireworks exploded in the universe. It was the master of Yinling style who blew himself up and died. He wanted to die together with the master of Chixu, but it was a pity that it was to no avail. The gap between the two sides was too big. Qi Shui's ability to not fall down has reached the peak level at this moment, and there are ice cracks and ice heroes that have silently entered the 8th level. I have actually entered the 8th level. Ha 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 ha, Bing Hao's wild laughter suddenly came. It was obvious that he realized that he had improved again after taking action, and the source of this improvement clearly came from Galleons. Thank you, leader. I didn't expect that I, Bing Hao, would be here today. Ha ha ha. At this moment, he had already understood the level of Garan, which was definitely the 10th level Holy Lord level. The Scarlet Snow sect actually produced a perpetual mover. It was just that he didn't make it public due to Garen's warning in advance. Everyone speed up. Garen slowly looked at the shrinking cocoon of the Dark Dragon, and countless streams of pure cold energy continued to pour into his body. Who is it? He snapped his fingers and shot out a cold light that hit the dark void on the right side of the Silver Bell Star. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1113. When the dazzling white light suddenly bloomed, and a dark figure suddenly appeared. Realizing that something was wrong, a jumping wormhole opened directly behind the black shadow, and he quickly retreated, trying to escape. Roar! Suddenly, a transparent invisible sound wave instantly spanned the middle distance, sprayed out from Garen's mouth, and hit the wormhole directly. With a pop, the wormhole burst like a fragile soap bubble. The black shadow that had just entered it with a normal body screamed, and its body was cut in half by the space and exploded. There's more here. Binkrak snorted coldly, and took action at the same time, using one claw to hold down the head of a black figure in another place. He was about to subdue the opponent, but he didn't expect that the person exploded, forcing him to retreat quickly, but his clothes were messed up after all. Suddenly Binkrak's expression became a little unswerving. In just a few moments, the dark dragon was almost digested. Garen saw that the evolution progress of the cold hell peacock mother in his body slowly increased by 1 point, reaching 6%. The masters of Jin Lingliu all around were dying and being captured. Stay in the ice crack, kill all the senior officials of Yinling on this planet, and the rest will continue to set off. Meet at Naga planet. Garen dropped an order, and countless threads flew back to his palm, and they were all wiped out quickly. Then he turned and left. Yes, the ice crack was filled with huge uncontrollable energy fluctuations and gravitational fluctuations. It was a symptom of being unable to perfectly restrain itself after just entering the 8th level. Garen and Binghao returned to the war fortress. After a short jump, it quickly disappeared into space. Is G-Liacy crazy? In a completely dark space somewhere in the universe, a voice suddenly sounded. Can't tell if it's a boy or a girl. He actually led the Chixu sect to invade sects everywhere. How bold he was. He destroyed 13 sects in 2 days and reached alliance agreements with 8 sections. What is he trying to do? Another woman's voice sounded. If his sister wasn't still here, huh? His sister has been named the Evil Shadow King. She is now competing with her father, the old Evil Shadow King, for hegemony. She will probably challenge His Majesty in the future. The Evil Shadow royal family is a run-down noble family after all. It was indeed glorious in the past, but now it is an antique. Times are advancing, and those who do not follow the changes will be eliminated. Noisy voices kept ringing, as if many people were talking at the same time. Boom! In the distant starry sky, a star exploded, erupting with a dazzling and coquettish halo, illuminating the space at once. Suddenly everything here was illuminated. There is actually only one huge figure here. This is a huge monster whose upper body is human and whose lower body is rooted in a dark planet. The weirdest thing is that it doesn't just have one head, but dozens of heads, all growing on one body. The densely packed human heads include both men and women, all with long snake-like necks connected to the torso. These heads were arguing, discussing, and talking with each other, as if they were not one person at all but a large group of people. The monster looks like a big black tree. The roots are vague roots, the trunk is his torso, and the crown is his countless heads. Do you want to kill G-Liacy? Among a large group of people, an old man slowly spoke. As soon as he spoke, the people around him fell silent. Where's Neela? Let him decide. I'm afraid he won't agree. Even he is probably no match for the new Evil Shadow King. Among the 2 nebulae of our human race and finite, apart from His Majesty and the Black King, only the Golden Thread Flower King can stabilize the Evil Shadow King. For one thing, the rest are no match for her. Another old woman's head also spoke. Among the 25 kings, unless we find 3 top-ranked kings to join forces at the same time, we can't touch G-Liacy for the time being. The old man nodded. Then just watch him plunder. What if the plan is ruined? Isn't the plan considered a conspiracy? The old man said lightly. Inform the other 9 stars that it's time to take action. Boom! Amid the violent vibrations, a dazzling and terrifying golden light exploded in the space in front of Garen. In the space between Galen and the opposite planet, Bing Crack and Bing Hao were teaming up to besiege a mummy-like guardian covered in tatters. This is already the third day of their departure. They have jumped through many genres, all of which are medium-sized. The small galleon has been ignored directly. It is not a big threat. He has also parasitized more than a dozen 8th level guardians along the way. Now the one whose name is being suppressed is the 19th. Soon the golden light became dimmer, and the white bandages all over the mummy guardian's body were gradually solidified and frozen by the ice. Many of them were broken. He was still struggling to hold on, while the other masters of this genre had been beaten by Chixu's masters and Zhongzhong. All the remaining masters of the conquered schools were captured, leaving no room for resistance. Garen didn't even need to take action, he just stood in space, watching quietly as his men surrounded the opponent without any trace of temper. Laugh. He shook his hand and secretly detected a trace of the twisting seed. Taking advantage of a flaw exposed by the opponent's siege, the seed instantly sank into the dim mummy guardian's body. The mummy gave a hard meal and froze up. The surrounding ice cracked. Bing Hao also stopped tacitly at the same time, and relaxedly watched the changes that the mummy was about to undergo. They knew that a powerful new member was about to join them. This is the horror of the peacock in the cold region. The power will grow bigger and stronger like a snowball. Even Guyinduo, no one dared to let Hanjing peacock let go of its development power. Because this kind of creature itself is not the strongest, but they can make already powerful creatures stronger. Even beyond themselves. In an instant, an even more dazzling golden light erupted from the mummy's body, and each golden character formed a streamer-like thing that appeared around him, slowly rotating, mysterious and extraordinary. The mummy's head was raised, and a terrifying 9th level aura erupted. The aura quickly expanded from the low level of the 9th level to the middle of the 9th level, and then directly entered the peak of the 9th level. Oh! Another guardian with his own quality as the foundation. Garen was a little surprised. Generally, the growth rate of a guardian stops at the low level of 9th level, but this guy is not the one. He rushes directly to the peak of the high level. Power! Such a powerful power, the mummy roared manically, almost addicted to the state that seemed to be able to improve itself endlessly. Laugh! Another golden light suddenly exploded from his body. This time, even Garen was slightly stunned. This is... Bing Hao's ice crack was directly hit by the golden light, and large blood bubbles appeared all over his body, as if he had been burned, and he quickly flew away with a strange scream. The golden light quickly condensed and formed into a thick golden whip, twisting and sweeping through space, hitting Galen. Die! Ha 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 ha! The mummy laughed wildly and controlled the golden whip to hit Galen. Garen didn't make any move, letting the golden whip get closer and closer. The strange thing is that when the golden whip was about to approach Galleons, it quickly shrank and became thinner. From its original thickness of several thousand meters, it shrunk directly to hundreds of meters, tens of meters, or several meters. Finally, when he arrived in front of Garen, he was only the size of a hair. Call. Garen exhaled and blew his golden hair away. How could the power I gave you be able to attack me back? He looked at the other person calmly. The mummy suddenly hugged his head. There seemed to be some huge latent power switch in his body. It was instantly activated and exploded by Garen's twisted seed. A heart-stopping beating suddenly spread from his body. The seed of distortion is affecting his spirit, making him understand that the root of everything is the seed of distortion, and the root of the seed of distortion comes from Galleon. After a long time, he slowly calmed down and regained his strength. The golden light in space also gradually disappeared and faded, and everything became calm again. The mummy finally calmed down completely, raised her head, and looked at Garen quietly. Originally I thought my life was about to end, but I didn't expect. He looked at his rejuvenated skin under the bandage with an uncertain expression. The eyes are complicated. I am willing to serve under you. The madness and violence in his body was subdued. He finally understood that the source of his strength and lifespan was the man in front of him, and still chose to surrender. In order to survive, for this intoxicating power. So, next one. Garen turned and flew towards the war fortress. You come with me. The mummy's eyes flashed fiercely, but he was suppressed by the twisted seed after all. After understanding the root connection, he finally stopped testing Garen. Follow him quickly. As for the sect behind him, he didn't care about that kind of thing originally. It was just to quietly improve his strength that he chose to cultivate in the sect and become the founder here. Now that there is another way, he naturally does not reasons to stay. Following Garen and flying to the war fortress, the mummy was suddenly shocked. Except for a few ordinary people on the war fortress, the rest were all not downgraded, as well as the two 8th level masters who had just besieged him. But what really shocked him? But it was a group of people standing alone on the other side. They were 4 terrifying figures covered in white robes that exuded a faint chill. Each of them was shrouded in distortion, making it impossible to see their physical appearance. But they all have one thing in common, that is, they are powerful. Level 9. All are level 9. None of these 4 people were below this level. The 2 strongest ones were even at the peak of level 9 like himself. The Eternal Mover needs the final disc, which cannot be achieved by simply improving strength, so the 9th level peak is the peak under the final disc. With you, there are 5 of us, Garen said calmly. Be careful to hide yourself, don't reveal your identity, stay here and don't go out. Soon, there will be a time when you need all your strength. The mummy nodded and walked to the side of the 4 people. The same twisted space covering his body covered the eyes of others. Garen nodded with satisfaction. The starfields near the Chixu sect have basically been cleared, and even the territory of the sect further away has been cleared by him. At least half of the 36 sects of the medium-sized sect have been parasitized by him, either openly or covertly, with the strongest guardians. Next, the Alliance must have sent experts to intercept, but even if the Alliance sends people, what level can they send? Level 9, or level 10. The 10th level itself is the pinnacle of the Energy Masters. There are only 3 10th level masters in the whole group. It is impossible to move lightly. So the only possibility is to send the 9th level, and they should be the strongest ones among the 9th level. Mysterious Journey. Author, Gunkai. Chapter 1114. In the Mechanic Masters Alliance, the strongest among the 9th level are the dozen or so people, each representing the 15 strongest sects under the 3 major sections. The strong men of the big sects usually have several or more 9th level masters. They are generally in a semi-reclusive state and will not act rashly. All the famous masters are at the peak of the 9th level. Each of them is a character who has experienced many battles and is difficult to deal with. Next, it may be a tough battle. Garen exhaled slowly and said softly. In just a few days, he reached the limit of what he could do, and controlled such a large amount of power. There were 5 9th level masters, including 2 peak 9th level masters, and the parasitic guardian, who was the 8th level peak. There are 18 people. In the past few days, the Twisted Seed has played an unparalleled role in terror. It's like a snowball getting bigger and bigger. But the mechanic is not a fool. He was just caught off guard. In addition, the mechanic's conspiracy has been discovered by those at the top, and the main focus is on that aspect. There is no time to take care of Garen for the time being, which allowed him to develop steadily for 3 days. Time. After all, in the eyes of the higher UPS, neither the medium-sized sects nor the small sects below are considered a threat. Adding up the total number of medium-sized sects, how many of them are at level 9? All of them together may not be able to defeat a large sect, let alone behemoths like the three major sects that stand at the top. But no one could have imagined that Garen could actually greatly increase the strength of masters. Each of the 8 level masters was promoted to the peak of level 8 or level 9 by him, and the level 9 was promoted to the peak of level 9. Such a terrifying increase made Garen Long quickly formed a huge power group. At this moment, his power was almost the same as that of an ordinary 9th level sect. With Chixu as the center, a large area of the surrounding star fields was occupied by him, forming the Chixu Alliance. Everyone, return home. Garen gave the order, and the Chixu fleet directly opened the jumping wormhole and flew towards the home planet. The next thing to do is to wait for the reaction of the Mechanics Alliance. But what Garen can predict is that without touching the interests of the major factions, and he himself has sufficient strength, the result will most likely be as he expected. In the cold dark universe, a white air ball grew from small to large, and soon expanded to the size of a human. A tall man wearing white earrings slowly walked out. The man had a simple smile on his face. One eye was red and the other was blue, like the finest pure crystal. It's interesting that they took over the territory while I was causing trouble. He looked far away in the direction of Chi Swexing and licked his lips. Suddenly, a red meteor shot straight in his direction in the distance, carrying a huge mass like a planet, pulling gravity and rushing towards the man. "Aren't you going to give up yet?" The white-haired man's expression changed slightly. He cursed harshly in a low voice, turned around and ran away, turning into a white ball of air again and disappearing from where he was. The red meteor didn't stop at all, and chased straight towards the other side of the star field. Not long after, a coquettish red light suddenly exploded in the distant star field. The red color spread in all directions, dyeing several surrounding planets a bright red. "Carthage, save me," a voice shouted loudly in the center of the red light explosion. "No one can save you," another little girl's voice said loudly and proudly. Hey, just scream. No one will save you even if your throat is broken." The red light suddenly became more dazzling. "Holy Lord Phoenix, don't bully others too much. Don't think I'm afraid of you." Ah, before he could finish his words, a scream spread. On the other side, a white figure floated quietly in space, looking motionless at the center where the red light shone. He wears a long white sword on his waist, looks very simple in white robes, and has an indifferent expression on his face, giving him an unusually cold temperament. After looking at the place where the red light shone, Carthage showed no intention of taking action. "It seems it's time for the Chixu sect to go back." Whoosh! A white meteor suddenly flew from the distance, hit his body hard, and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. Soon there was another whooshing sound, and a white meteor flew again, hit him, and disappeared instantly. If someone can look carefully at the white meteor, they will find that there is a vague human figure among them. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Soon white meteors flew from all directions and merged into Carthage's body. The white meteors at this moment could be easily seen clearly. It was shocking that they were humanoid figures exactly like him. No matter what kind of dress or appearance, the cold temperament is the same. Slowly, the number of white meteors became more and more dense, and this spectacle lasted for several minutes. Finally, the last meteor completely merged into Carthage, and he slowly exhaled. The gravitational fluctuations on his body suddenly increased from 1,000 times to a 10,000 times level 9, and then shrunk suddenly from a 10,000 times, completely shrinking into a fuzzy black hole with his body as the center in the blink of an eye. Black hole, this is the sign of the real Eternal Mover level 10. All the Eternal Movers possess a deadly weapon that can lead to death together, which is the black hole of the body. This is not an ordinary little black hole, but a huge anti-space hole that can swallow everything endlessly. It completely connects the positive and negative spaces in an instant. The huge gravitational distortion can tear apart space and time, and any living thing can be destroyed in an instant. They will all be torn apart by the terrifying gravity. The planet is no exception. Therefore, the key to the difficulty of dealing with the ever-moving one is this. If you make him anxious, you will die together, and everyone will die together. The incarnation of a black hole is the biggest sign of the 10th level eternal mover, and the endless energy is just the ability to continuously absorb energy from the counter space and use it in the positive space, that's all. In fact, there are two types of black holes in the universe. One is material black hole. This type is naturally formed. When its mass density reaches an extremely terrifying level, it can form a larger traction force. This traction force is so strong, so that even light cannot escape being absorbed into the body that becomes a part of it. That's why people can't see or observe it, so they call it a black hole. In fact, this type of material black hole is a high-density object like a dead star. It's just that the gravity is too strong and light cannot escape, so it appears black. So it is called a black hole. But the second type is different, non-material black holes. This is the scariest thing. The eternal movers incarnate this type. Because non-material black holes can also capture light, they appear the same black and are also called black holes. However, they are essentially different from the first type. This type of black hole is a passage to the antimatter universe. They are the boundary between space and time in the universe. All material life sucked into it will undergo an annihilation from matter to antimatter and shrink to an incredible level. Transform into the most basic energy particles and enter the counter space universe. And in this, even the soul will be ground into the most basic energy particles. It's like a never-ending mixing and crushing machine, swallowing up everything in a steady stream. This type of black hole will not grow larger, but it will never be filled. And it is much more powerful than the first type. The eternal movers themselves are a weak balance, walking and surviving between the two major spaces and universes, transcending time and space, and being surrounded by extremely huge gravity at any time. As the last white meteor rushed into Carthage's body, his whole person seemed to become more complete. His temperament was just simple and cold at the beginning, but now there is a faint sense of overflowing that is so powerful that it can escape. Shinandi. There seems to be an accident in your arrangement. Red light flashed, and a little girl with red twin tails appeared above Carthage. She was wearing a pink skirt. She was no more than 5 or 6 years old. She looked like a pupil who had just entered elementary school. There was nothing unusual about her, but what's strange is that the little girl's mouth is open, and sitting on the pink tongue is a little red person only the size of a fingernail. It is a red-haired little girl countless times smaller, and the appearance is exactly the same as the one carrying a skull bag. Just naked and without clothes? The words came from her. Shinandi's eyes fell on the little girl on her tongue. His eyes were a little stiff, as if they were lacking lubricant, and they moved mechanically. Do you have any opinion? I don't dare to have any objections to you, Captain. I'm just curious. It's rare that someone can escape from your plan. The little girl on the tongue smiled delicately. Gives people a sense of temptation. You want to come along? Carthage, perhaps called Shinandi, her eyes were motionless, like a zombie, staring at each other in a somewhat scary way. It seems that after recycling all the parts, he has become less natural and seems a bit stiff and mechanical. May I? Whatever. Shinandi turned around and grabbed it, and suddenly a black gap opened in the space in front of her. He flew directly into the gap lightly, followed closely by the little girl in red skirt. Wait for me. The white-haired man from before appeared again, with a simple and honest smile still hanging on his lips, but his whole body had changed from being clean and tidy before to being covered in bruises. His hair was still smoking, and his face was covered in black smoke. Following the two people in front, the man instantly turned into a white ball of air and shot into the gap, disappearing completely. Chixyuxing. Garen and everyone have returned to the headquarters. The entire red snow planet is densely covered with various floating defense forts. A large number of space station defense satellites have armed the entire planet like a dark and ferocious beast, powerful and terrifying. After a few days of lightning raids, the Chixyu sect achieved incredible results. 20 sects were either wiped out or subdued by Chixyu, and more than a dozen joined the alliance. The Scarlet Snow Alliance has completely formed a new pattern at this moment, occupying a small area of the star map in the middle and north of the entire human nebula, forming a giant that far exceeds the original Chixyu sect. Garen's reputation also spread to all major sects through instant communication in a very short period of time, and he entered the sight of some major sects. The real test for the Chixyu sect will also follow.